happy to see you leading IQVIA's product strategy. And now the question is, I still see many companies using manual workflows.
Yeah, again, that's another great question.
We all are incredibly lucky to be born in this era where AI is taking shape, because a lot can be done.
Trailblazers, dream catchers, leaders, legends. These are the people who are architects of our world. And today, welcome to episode number 10 of Legends of Biotecnika, where we are going to capture one such leader, a legend in the world of medtech, biotech, and healthcare. Welcome to the episode, guys. Today, as we are kickstarting the 10th episode, let me talk about Michael J. King, a global thought leader in the quality management systems, digital health, and regulatory innovation. Mike brings over 2 decades of experience working with top-tier medtech, pharma, biotech companies across the globe. As a passionate advocate for ethical and effective use of AI in regulatory workflows, he has been instrumental in shaping how companies approach compliance, complaint management, post-marketing surveillance, and Gen AI-driven content creation. In today's conversation, we are going to deep dive into the evolving intersection of AI, quality systems, compliance, and health tech and medtech. We're going to explore how innovators like Michael are helping shape a safer, smarter healthcare ecosystem for all of you. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's welcome Michael King. Hi, Michael. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. And thank you for that really kind introduction.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us today for this call. And I was reading through your LinkedIn and the work which you have done. It's really exciting. And the way the ecosystem is evolving now with AI coming into the equation, it is really intriguing. So we would love to start by asking you what's on the top of your mind right now as you look at the entire landscape as it evolves.
Yeah, I think there's one phrase and one comment. And I often laugh because in quality assurance and regulatory affairs, we would say it's complicated and it depends. So my top of mind is this environment is incredibly complex, and how each solution for patients and driving product quality can depend on a whole host of variables. So what's top of mind is how do we navigate complexity? How do we accommodate variation? But how do we drive that focus on patient outcomes with good use of AI across quality and regulatory processes?
All right. So now let's look at the social media. 5.3 billion global users are there on social media, and the patient feedback is exploding. All this data is exploding. And how do you think medtech companies can cope up using AI to transform into a multilingual, unstructured data into early safety signals? What's your take on that?
Yes, so 2 or 3 key things. Firstly, there is a vast amount of data out there. So using AI allows us to look for the needle in the haystack, those true patient safety issues that could be systematic of bigger problems. The other thing AI allows us to do is to look at different data sources and bring information into our quality system so that we're not just waiting on some of those transactional contact points, such as telephones or communication that's direct from clinicians. We can hear directly from patients themselves. So there's a whole host of things at play that we can use AI for.
Right. So this is really exciting, and I am really happy to see you leading IQVIA's product strategy. And but my personal question to you now would be, how did it all happen? If you could throw some light on your personal journey. I can see that you have done your physics in Oxford, and how it all transformed from there to IQVIA and now. If you could take us through your journey, personal journey so far in your career.
Yeah, I promise I'll keep it short. So 20 years plus, I mean, a lot has happened. But, for me personally, obviously, as you've mentioned, had a degree or received a degree in physics and then looked to really try and understand how can I make a difference with people. I tried a couple of different avenues, and then the first healthcare company I went into was an orthopedic company. So I had the opportunity to work within an organization that had a direct, tangible impact in the quality of life for a whole host of individuals. I started as a business analyst. An opportunity turned up to look at a role in quality assurance and regulatory affairs, and I like a challenge. So I thought something new, something different. Let's go and see what we can do. And the ethics behind the role and the ability to support businesses in driving that impact in better healthcare outcomes, whilst combining a knowledge of physics and material science and other things in such a way to support healthcare professionals, was something that led me into QARA. And since then, I've had a great opportunity. I've worked within the EMEA, I've worked globally, I've worked in different therapeutic areas, and I've been lucky and privileged to work alongside some phenomenal individuals who have depths and strengths of things that I can only imagine of. That I've been really lucky to bring those teams together to leverage their expertise and drive that focus on improving patient outcomes. And along the way, the AI era has really exploded. So it's been quite a wonderful journey.
Yeah. I always keep telling myself that we all are incredibly lucky to be born in this era where AI is taking shape, because a lot can be done with this new tech and in whatever fields we are. And I can see that happening today with health tech and med tech. So my next question, okay, that's really inspiring. Your journey is really inspiring. Now that you are in IQVIA and you are handling global teams across the globe, how do you, and of course, this is a complicated operations which you run. So how do you handle all of this, and how is AI helping you there?
Yeah, good question. So if you look at the unit I work within, it surrounds what we call digital products and solutions. So it's technology specifically for me, for the quality and the regulatory professional. So when you look at the solutions we offer, they are for companies that could be scattered across the world, and particularly those organizations that have a global geographic footprint. So in navigating and helping those teams internally, we have some AI tools that allow us to effectively communicate. And if you look at simple things, such as some of the technology we have in our laptops, that ability to do simple things like schedule meetings at the right time, take meeting notes, and to summarize content, that allows us to really maximize our working time so that we can have more time dedicated to innovation and driving activities within our organization. With those same principles into QARA technology, so quality assurance and regulatory affairs technology, what we can do is look and see and find those opportunities to summarize content, to drive insights, but also to optimize that healthcare professional so that we can work in a way that gives us more time on commercially focused strategic activities. And ultimately that does pull through to better quality product, better patient outcomes, and better healthcare for when you're working in industry. So it's really interesting. Those same tools we use internally, we're looking to use externally as well to drive that focus on patient safety and product quality.
Right. Okay. So now I'll circle back to the initial question which I asked you in the beginning of the this conversation, where we talked about social media exploding and a lot of complaints coming in. So what are the key challenges you have seen so far in integrating the social derived complaints into real safety actions? What's your take on that?
Yes, I think two or three key points. The first thing is the volume of data. So having the right type of AI that can navigate a high volume of data is absolutely key, either when you're looking for that needle in the haystack, or if you're looking to aggregate trends and monitor the trending of performance. The second key thing is variance in what we call ontology. So different products have different therapeutic uses, and it's important to contextualize how that product is being used and where there are specific issues. So, for example, I'm short-sighted. I wear glasses or contact lenses. the type of way in which a contact lens or a pair of glasses could fail is very different to someone in my family who's a type 1 diabetic and who is using a closed loop glucose monitoring system with hardware, software, and a pharmaceutical product as well. So configuring the ontologies in such a way that they work for that therapeutic area is key. I think the third key thing is bringing that together. So having the right technology to monitor the information, to have the right ontology to bring back information, and then to drive tangible outcomes so that you are looking into product quality, patient impact, and ultimately continuous improvement, which are three key things within the world of quality assurance and regulatory affairs.
Right. So if I look at now AI, which is really powerful, my question to you is: don't you think we need a human oversight? Don't you think it is essential? And how do you strike a right balance in between, automation using AI and machine learning, and how important will be expert validation in this triage?
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. And there's a hot debate around human in the loop and to what extent we should maintain oversight. I think, again, two or three key things. When you look at the healthcare environment, it is a regulated environment. So we have regulations and standards which allow us to really see how we bring product to market in a way that is acceptable for global and local governments and is on the right side of patient safety.
Right. Okay. So far, have you faced any kind of challenges in this, maintaining this balance in between both?
Challenge is an interesting word. I think the world of QARA is full of challenges. What I would say is opportunity. So when you try and take the technology and apply it in new ways, there's key learning points. It is absolutely key, though, that we apply AI in a way that works for the regulations and standards. So starting with the right problem statement is absolutely key. Understanding what regulations and standards apply to that problem statement is also key. And then solutioning out in a way that is cost effective whilst maintaining that focus on patient safety and product quality is the magic ingredient behind that use of AI in the healthcare environment for QARA.
Okay. All right. So let's now bring our focus back to IQVIA, where you're working right now. So you have a product called Smart Sol, which is an EQMS system. If you could throw some light on how it is different and what sets it apart from other competitors, and how it is handling complaints, adverse events, and all of that.
Yeah, that's a big question. So thank you for asking that question. Again, three key things. First thing, when you look at the work of quality assurance and regulatory affairs professionals, it is very broad and very deep. So our Smart Sol quality management solution, which also combines with our regulatory information management solution and a Reg Intel product, offers the QARA professional a breadth of connected modules that allow us to drive the seamless movement of content, data, and documents from necessary connected processes. So the first key thing is breadth and depth. The second key thing, and this is something we really do like, we're built out upon a technology that allows us to leverage Microsoft capabilities. When we're looking at Microsoft Azure-based technology, when we're leveraging those capabilities around machine learning, around linguistics, around analytics, we're able to take IQVIA healthcare expertise and Microsoft technology and combine them in such a way that we're driving that focus on patient safety, product quality, and also commercial performance. I think the third key thing that we're pushing is the pragmatic use of AI. So making sure that within the regulated environment, the way in which we use AI is controlled, it's focused, and drives value for patient safety, product quality, commercial performance that stays on the right side of global regulation.
Right. So if you could tell us some real world story how your Smart Sol could, improve the accuracy or improve the response time, if you could tell us something more about that.
Yeah, sure. And if it's okay, can I walk through a quick example? And I promise I'll keep it quick. But if you look at what may happen, if you imagine a case where a medical device is being used, so either in theatre, an orthopedic product, or perhaps someone's using a diabetic pump, or again, perhaps they're using optical products. There are cases where products don't necessarily perform as expected. You want to know about those. So when you're looking for that information, you want to bring it in as quick as possible, and you want to make sure you're looking at original records and not duplicating efforts. So within our complaint system, when you enter information, we can use generative AI to look for duplicates. So for example, on the orthopedic side, if something goes wrong in surgery, you could have the surgeon contacting a company, you could have the patient, you could also have the regulator. Being able to identify duplicates and group them together allows you to work in a way that drives a focus in responding to the regulator, the customer, and also the patient. But it also allows you to maximize your efforts by not doing the same activity for 3 different things, because they're one event. So that's one very quick way in which generative AI allows us to look at these duplicates to make sure we're not duplicating activity, and that in turn frees up resources to focus on responding to the customer and to the regulator, and responding or improving product quality if there is an issue that needs to be taken further on the manufacturing side.
Perfect. So this looks like a perfect system, but now let's look at this. How does your platform ensures compliance with diverse global standards? Because regulators in European Union have a different standard, US has a different one, ISO is different. And how are the regulators okay with you leveraging AI, and how are you doing it using
great question. And again, it's about operating within the bounds of regulation. So I think a key thing to mention, healthcare has been regulated for a number of years, decades, in fact. So there are well-established regulations and standards that are specific both for product quality and for the licensing of entities that would manufacture and distribute products such as medical devices, but also inclusive of in vitro diagnostics and pharmaceuticals. So it is a regulated environment. We're not moving afresh with no controls. Those controls matter. And if you look at the history of healthcare, there's been some incidents where product hasn't performed as expected, and that has resulted in the regulations we have today. So the third thing to note is we are operating in a regulated environment. When it comes to AI, it is again regulated. I think the challenge with AI is the speed at which it has been driven forwards, and the awareness of the general population as to how they would like to use certain AI things or see them used in certain situations. For healthcare, you have to apply that to the regulated environment. So to answer the original question, how do we use AI in a regulated environment? You need to be mindful of the regulations and look at those specific process steps which are mandated, where you could use technology to drive improved quality, improved operational experience, improved focus on patient safety, but ultimately drive that focus on better quality products for global markets to drive those patient outcomes. So it's all about that focus, patient first, but in the environment of regulated, monitored activity. And again, that's where the human in the loop matters, because you have human in the loop quality and regulatory professionals who have experience and understanding of the context of healthcare. And that is truly something that we need to be mindful of.
Right. But now the question is, I still see many companies using manual workflows. Mm-hmm. So as an expert, can you design a roadmap, or can you tell us a roadmap which these companies should follow so that they can use the new era of AI and the QMS which you guys have?
I'm smiling. I was going to say it depends and it's complicated. The answer is yes, you can drive a roadmap. The key, though, is context. So when you sit down with a company, what you need to understand is, look, what are your current business operations? What are your product types? And what are the geographies that you operate in? And how do you get to market? And so once you've understood that context, you have an understanding of their quality management systems and how they would operate. You can then look at those most significant opportunities. And that's a question we often ask. And so for those who are listening, I would sort of reflect back and say, look, what are the most significant opportunities in my organization, and what outputs do they drive? And once you've understood that, and you then look at the processes that are involved and the regulations around that, you can begin designing and selecting specific use cases where you could solution out and find there's a great way to use generative AI, NLP, standard analytics, or even a bit more controlled connectivity between your existing ecosystem to drive improved performance and also drive improved outcomes for product quality. So those roadmaps are broad. And to give you an idea of the size of healthcare, there's over 500,000 different medical device types. To throw some scary numbers, imagine 500,000 different product types in 100 countries, each country with a different 100 or so regulations and standards.
That's a problem.
It's a big problem. And then multiply that together, that's a big thing to navigate. So that is why solutioning based on principle and context can offer great help to medical device companies.
Right. Now it all makes sense, and I can connect to it. Wow, that's really amazing what you guys are doing here. But now let's look at the regulatory submissions or the audit process. So you have so far, I remember you in 2024 you spoke about AI, which will be augmenting the regulatory professionals and not replacing them. So how in today's era, generative AI is reshaping the task like regulatory submissions, according to you?
Great question. So if I look at where I worked in industry, and I'd give an example for Europe and America at the same time, and then expand that globally. At the manufacturing side, we would create content that helps us for our European CE marking, or also for our American submissions as well. And in many cases, the European and the American content is used for global submissions. And there's a whole host of countries that do that. I should say there are some very big countries, such as Russia, China, and a few others that have standalone activity. But what we're trying to do is to see, can we take that original European and American content and accelerate how that is lifted and supported other countries in their local submissions? So when you look at AI possibilities in that situation, there's 2 or 3 key points. Can I identify the different requirements in the country so that I'm creating the right content? Can I leverage my existing content and accelerate the compilation of that information? And then can I scan what I've put together? Because you will need other sources in many different countries, but can I scan that and do a sanity check as to the quality of that content? And then the 4th key question, can I look at precedent information? So can I look at questions that I may have received in similar submissions, or questions from the local authorities for historic submissions, so that I can prepare in advance and make sure I improve the quality of that submission? Because ultimately, if I can accelerate the timeliness of approval, it means I can bring products to market in a way that is quicker than it currently is today. And that's of massive benefit to the patient.
True. Now this is really insightful, but let's talk about something which is like an adverse drug event, or an adverse event has been reported. Now, how would you validate AI in such high-risk regulatory functions?
Yeah, carefully, genuinely carefully. It's absolutely key. And again, if you go back and look at the history of healthcare, a lot of significant regulatory changes have been driven by health events that have accelerated to a point where it's been seriously detrimental to the general public. So carefully matters. I think 2 or 3 key things. The first thing to make sure of is that you're operating within the constraints of the existing regulation. So global regulations and standards have been written for a purpose, and making sure we're respectful of them, because there is global variation, is key. The second key thing is around the verification and validation processes that are undertaken. So making sure, again, that we're on the right side of those activities, and making sure the data is transparent, there's data governance in place, and that you're able to easily respond to external questions is key. The third key thing is in the execution. So there should be monitoring things in place to look for things such as drift, to look for things such as bias, and to make sure that we are corrected at the right point in time. And again, that's where human in the loop surveillance and governance programs matter. So 3 key things to look at. And if you again imagine that as the context can change, there's a lot of complexity in there. So that's why a whole host of organizations are looking to make sure we have the right data driven in the right way, with the right amount of governance within that context of healthcare, because ultimately what we're about is driving improved product quality and better results for the patients.
And that's probably where you said that AI is always going to be there to assist and augment and not to replace regulatory professionals. That makes a lot of sense now. I can see that. Now let's put this into perspective now that, okay, you designed an AI system for the regulatory landscape of today. Okay. But as we know, the regulatory landscape also evolves over a period of time, almost daily basis. We keep seeing new regulations coming in. So how do you make sure that your AI system stays aligned with this evolution of regulatory system?
I'm smiling. I was going to say it's complicated again, but I don't want to tire the audience with the same response. It's interesting because that's a great example. And that is actually a case where you can use AI to help you identify when regulations keep changing. So if you look at global surveillance, there's a whole host of regulations, as we mentioned. Imagine 100 countries with 100 regulations and standards for 500,000 different products. The level of surveillance is huge. To have an AI tool that monitors governance and regulation and would automatically notify you of change is key. And so if you think from a professional point of view, historically, myself and my teams would manually monitor government databases and stay in touch with local unions. And
in the old era.
Yeah, in the old era.
Yeah.
So you were heavily reliant on publishing, you were heavily reliant on communication, and you were heavily reliant on being in the right room. If you weren't in the right room, you didn't get oversight of what could be coming. So with AI monitoring, you can look at government websites and be notified when certain things change. That's an on-point notification. So you've just given your business time. And if you're monitoring the right sources, you've also maintained compliance. And you've now got more time and more compliant activities to be driven. The other key thing is resource utilization. And I think of myself and my old teams and the amount of times we would spend checking that nothing's changed. You get that time now as a professional. So you can go and look at product design. You can look at continuous improvement. You can look at market access, because that historic time that was allocated for market surveillance can now be automated. So there's a great benefit there in using AI to monitor changing regulations to drive better human performance.
Okay, wonderful. So I think we have covered a lot of distance now in these two directions. Now I would like to attract your attention towards the small medium enterprises. These are the real backbone of the economy as well as the healthcare system. So I see a lot of SMEs, as we call them, wear multiple hats, and so far what I have seen is they are slow in adopting any such systems, and because the resources are tight, they don't have so much capital and they can't invest. So what's your advice to these small medium enterprises who are in this domain?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And first and foremost, thank you to the SMEs. A significant amount of innovation that's driving better clinical outcomes is being driven by me. So first and foremost, thank you to the SMEs. I think the key is staying laser focused on the outcome. And I know I've mentioned it a few times, but it's about driving global access to high quality products so we improve patient outcomes. So the output needs to be commercially viable patient outcomes. And I stress commercially viable because that's key for an SME, making sure that resources are used the right way, making sure that capital spend is delivered in the right way is key to making sure that businesses drive profitable activity to allow them to bring these products to market. So with that context, if I were an SME, I would clearly define those most significant opportunities and around that, the use case that I was going after. And by focusing in on one or two things at a time, as you deliver value for the organization, you can sell that internally, you can generate potentially future investment, and you continue cascade effect of doing one or two things well originally, which could become 2 to 4, which could become 5 to 10. And as you focus that spend and make sure it's generating a return, tangible use cases drive uptake. They also drive focus and they drive activities that allow you to accelerate your business. So, two or three ones if I was an SME. We mentioned post-market surveillance. So using a good tool to monitor different sources of performance. And if you work on the capital field, monitoring your technical service database is a great way of driving insights into product quality and patient outcomes. Another key way where you could use this is translation. Having the ability to translate content and to then allow a human in the loop to review that content, again with the context of the healthcare eye, could help you accelerate the creation of those first drafts and improve submission timelines and the creation of content. So there are some quick wins that can be used, but laser focus on the right use case for the specific company really can help those SMEs drive profitable innovation.
Mm-hmm. So the moment we talk about profits and at the same time resources are scarce, and this is my personal experience with when I deal with a lot of SMEs, is we are always price sensitive when we are SME, and we are always looking at ROI, right? So how do we justify the ROI and how do we calculate the ROI when we are looking at an AI powered QMS system?
Yeah, I would use similar techniques as I've used in the previous ones. I think the first key thing, and I'm talking more to myself here based on a background of time in QARA, use the right lexicon. And what I mean by that is sometimes in QARA, we've got a whole host of different words and phrases. But if we can frame the benefits in terms of commercial growth, operational effectiveness, operational efficiency, and compliance, that allows us to have a communication with those senior stakeholders so they can immediately relate and see the intrinsic value of what we're offering. I think the second key thing, and we've seen this if you look through the news, you can see that with healthcare companies who have had challenges, framing what we're doing as the cost of quality versus the cost of non-quality allows organizations to see that investing in such solutions isn't a cost, it's an investment. So if you look at some significant issues in companies, big recalls can cause double-digit drop in share prices. And the investment against that, and if you use those examples, can help you explain to your local businesses why focusing on improving the cost of quality could have a significant benefit in mitigating against a very high cost of non-quality.
Right. So now let's also look at another aspect of regulatory affairs, that is regulatory confidence. And how do you design a human in the loop system in your QMS so that AI systems maintain that they don't have a data bias and there is an integrity and the regulators have confidence in the data? How do you make sure all of that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the first thing to say is there's always a bias. And what I mean by that is when you have humans in the loop, humans have their bias. And when you're looking at some of the data that's been selected by humans for a use case that's been generated by humans, for AI tools that have been created by humans, you still have bias in those activities. So the trick is to mitigate against bias. And when you're looking at the data sets that you're building for these AI tools, making sure the data is positioned in such a way that you've reduced bias or that you're consciously aware of those gaps where there could be bias is key. But also the post-launch monitoring of such systems when you're looking at potential drift, again, having those measures in place so that you can immediately correct against bias is absolutely key. And that's why the human in the loop matters, by the way. Us humans have bias. But in order to have the right data at the right times, we can mitigate against bias by having the right data, but also by having other humans in the loop to challenge and to push and to really drive through audit and inspection how things should be.
Mm-hmm. But there is always, because eventually we are going to communicate to the regulators.
Yeah.
And when they see AI-assisted safety decisions taken, how would they ascertain that this is transparent, auditable, justified, and how does your team build this inbuilt into your systems?
Yeah, that's another great question. Again, two or three key things. So our current complaint management system is validated against US 21 CFR and other global requirements. So the original validation inspires confidence for those human-to-human discussions. The second key thing when questioned is to bring transparency to how certain models have been trained. So, for example, one of our key things we have in our complaint system is the ability for a generative AI prompt to suggest a US adverse event reporting code. To get there, we've trained our solution on 5 years worth of MAUD data. So MAUD is the US database that records adverse events. And by using that publicly available information that has relevance for a whole host of different product types, we've created a solution that helps the human in the loop verify or choose a different one if they need to, which code will be reported. So bringing transparency to that and demonstrating the data source then brings confidence. So there's some of the key techniques. It's around validation, it's around transparency, it's around congruence of data. And the key thing we're talking about here as well is about a conversation. So it's using AI to empower those human to human conversations. And in healthcare, that also drives better human outputs when it comes to patient safety.
Right. So let's look at the future now. What we are seeing today is generative AI and all these LLMs and all the implementation into the regulatory framework. But we also hear a lot about agentic AI. We also hear a lot about, real-time analytics flowing in, and we use NLP, which is natural language processing, and developing algorithms. So what do you believe will be the next big thing which will reshape the entire regulatory landscape and operations? What's your take on that?
Yeah, again, that's another great question. I would say it's almost impossible to see. And the reason I share that, if you look backwards, it's quite interesting. If you look backwards, and history is no prediction of the future, the speed at which this technology has advanced is incredible. So, I remember traveling and getting lost in various countries, and I was so happy when you were able to use a simple translation tool and look at things like menus, train stations and airports to navigate through. That was transformational back in the day. Nowadays, the plug of technology is in every phone. It's par for the course. So when you look forwards, the rate of increase is absolutely phenomenal. A real simple one, the ability to interrogate information could be absolutely transformative, more so than we're doing today. And again, if you go back to data, the ability to mine through historic data and companies and publicly available data to drive insights to clinical performance, product quality, potential areas, and then leverage AI in the innovation pipeline to look at different ways of producing products or different ways of bringing these insights together could be huge. So that ability to interrogate what we have, but also to drive some of the innovation behind the products that we're bringing to market could be phenomenal. And again, I use that in the context of patient outcomes. How can we better serve some of these use cases that we have when it comes to delivering clinical solutions for global populations?
Right. So that's really groundbreaking. And today's deep dive has made it very clear that with AI combined with the systems which IQVIA is building under your leadership is going to be a game changer, no doubt about it. But now, how should regulatory affairs professionals, the professionals of the future, like they are the students or they are they're just getting started with the regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance career, how should they strategize and what should they do to become successful in this evolving era of regulatory AI?
Again, another great question. The first thing I'll say for anyone who's interested in looking at quality assurance and regulatory affairs, it is an area where you are constantly learning. So whether you're looking at different geographies or whether you're looking at different products, or now whether you're looking at new technologies, the ability to learn, the ability to get involved in driving patient outcomes, and the ability to work across organizations to really bring teams together, it is really what drove me into this area. And it's something that's really exciting for the future. The second thing, if you're looking at this field, there's so many different ways to do QARA. So you can look at pre-market activities on regulatory submissions. You could be looking at post-market in terms of complaint handling, surveillance and recalls. You've got production controls, you've got supplier quality, you've got regulatory intelligence. There's so much at play. And then when you look at the innovation side of things and bringing all of that together, the key learnings would be around country, around products, around therapeutic areas, and around new technologies. So the opportunity to learn is key. And if I were coming into that field from scratch, I'd be looking at novel technologies, where you can focus on driving new and improved patient outcomes, but also how you can support the existing portfolio in market. Because as much as we love to focus on new technology, we also need to recognize the fact that there's a whole host of really good technologies out there today that drive an incredibly good use for a whole host of different people. We need to keep those on market. It's about patient outcomes.
Right, right. So I think we have come towards the end of this session today. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing all those incredible insights. And truly speaking, the future of quality systems and compliance and how AI is going to impact it and how it's all evolving, and especially your work at IQVIA, is exemplifying the fact that innovation and regulation can go hand in hand. And your vision offers a clear blueprint, to be very frank, for companies navigating this evolving landscape. So thank you so much for joining us today, Mike, for this podcast episode. And as we look forward to more automated, data-driven and transparent regulatory world, I think leaders like you will be needed more, who will pave the way to towards a better world for our patients and of course the healthcare systems. So thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And to our audience, to our very loyal listeners, you are working today at the intersection of biotech, medtech, AI, and compliance, and it's evolving. This conversation today with Mike was a wake-up call to embrace innovation, to embrace regulation with AI without compromising safety, quality. And with these thoughts, I would leave you there. So just stay curious, guys. Remember that you have a great way ahead if you learn from leaders like Mike and keep building a better future for global health. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon in the next one. Till then, keep shining. Take care. Bye-bye.